Hey everyone, over the last few weeks, I've seen a lot in the news about Joe Biden's plan for Social Security. Now, one of the pieces of this plan that has always stuck out to me is his plan for survivor benefits. And in today's video, I want to cover what he plans to change and who is most likely to benefit from these changes. But first, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell. There's some really big stuff. Seriously, if everything goes according to plan, there's some really big stuff coming down the road. So if you don't want to miss this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notifications bell. So let's jump in. If you keep up with the news on Social Security, you've probably noticed that Joe Biden's plan has gotten a decent amount of coverage. Now, I'll likely cover some of the other components of his plan in future videos, but the one thing that keeps getting my attention is his plan to modify survivor benefits. Now, what I found most interesting about it was that in just about every article I would come across, it would mention that under his plan, survivor benefits would increase by around 20%. Now, I saw this in article after article, and there was never any explanation of the increase. It would just say something like, Biden's plan would increase Social Security survivor benefits by 20%. And even the analysis of the Biden plan for Social Security by the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania just grazed the surface without offering any real details. And then Biden's website mentions a 20% increase without mentioning how this would happen. So needless to say, this finally got me too curious to keep ignoring it. If benefits were going to increase, surely there was an easy explanation. Well, the truth is I had to search for a while too, but I finally found a link to a Congressional Budget Office report that led me down the long road of finally getting this figured out. So currently, a surviving spouse is entitled to the greater of his or her own benefits, or the benefits of the deceased, whichever is higher. Now, there's a few caveats and other rules in there, but that's the basics. If you want to dive deeper into that, I'll link up some videos in the description that go into the details on survivor benefits. Now, this current system of survivor benefits causes problems for a lot of couples because effectively it means that household income gets cut by a large percentage. In households where the Social Security benefits were equal, it means that household income from Social Security will decline by 50%. So needless to say, hearing that survivor benefits could increase by 20% certainly catches my attention. That could be a really big deal. Now, the way they intend to accomplish this is to create an alternative benefit calculation just for survivors' benefits. Now, this new calculation would essentially create a combined benefit from the benefit of the deceased and the benefit of the surviving spouse. It would be calculated by adding together 75% of the surviving spouse's own benefit from their work and 75% of the benefit from the deceased spouse, the one that they would receive if they were still alive. For example, let's look at a hypothetical couple under the current rules and then the same couple under the new proposed rules. Let's assume that the husband has a benefit of $1,500 and the wife has a benefit of $1,000. Now, this gives them a current household benefit of $2,500. If the husband dies, the wife would start receiving his benefit and her benefit would simply drop off. This means that her income from Social Security would decline by $1,000 per month. That's a 40% cut and a big deal if she depends heavily on that income. Under the new rules, the survivor benefit would be calculated by taking 75% of the deceased husband's benefit, so $1,125, plus 75% of the spouse's benefit who is still alive. So that's $750 from her benefit. Now, if you add those together, you get $1,875 as the new survivor benefit amount. That's actually a 25% increase from what she would have gotten under the current rules. Now, there are some caveats to this plan that you need to know, and although Biden's team hasn't published anything definitive, they have referenced a report that has some good detail on this calculation. And of course, it, along with a lot of other good reading, is going to be linked up down in the description below. So if you really want to dive into this, there's some fun stuff down there. So the first thing to know about this calculation is that it really only helps beneficiaries with lower benefit amounts because the alternative formula is going to be capped. To determine the amount of the cap, they'll look at a hypothetical worker who earned average wages from age 20 until they earned 62 in the current year. So for example, this year we'd look at someone who started working in 1978 at age 20, earned exactly the average wages every year, and turned 62 this year. This is 2020. For that individual, their full retirement age benefit would be about $1,900. That's the amount the new calculation would be capped at. Another important thing to know is that surviving spouses would receive the greater of the survivor's benefit available under the current law or the benefit amount available under the new alternative benefit calculation. Now, this primarily is going to be a factor for households where you have one spouse whose benefit was substantially higher than the other spouse. For example, if one spouse has a $2,000 benefit and the other spouse has a $500 benefit, the new calculation would take 75% of $2,000 and 75% of $500 for a combined benefit of $1,875. Now, the old calculation would leave a surviving spouse with a $2,000 benefit, so the old calculation is what would be used for a spouse in that scenario. And that leads us to the next issue, is that a duly entitled beneficiary needs to understand that only the benefit from their work will be considered as part of that 75%, not the spousal payment portion. Now, I've got a video that covers the topic of dual entitlement from top to bottom, so if you don't understand how that works, you need to check it out. But to illustrate this, let's assume that a higher earning spouse has a benefit of $2,000 and the lower earning spouse has a benefit from their work of $500. Under the spousal payment provisions, the lower earning spouse is entitled for a total benefit of up to $1,000. Now, $500 of that would be from their work and $500 of that would be from the spousal payment. When running this new calculation, the portion from the spousal payment is not counted. The result of this, in many cases, would be like the example we just looked at, where the result of the new calculation would be lower than the old calculation. So the old calculation would continue to be used. The other thing to know is that the benefit amounts used in this calculation for both the surviving spouse and the deceased spouse include any reductions for claiming before full retirement age and any delayed retirement credits for later filing. So those are included. In some earlier versions of this, it did not, but in the most recent, those are included. So who's going to benefit from this change to the survivor benefit calculation? Well, if you go back to the 2015 report by the Congressional Budget Office, by 2040, about 40% of newly eligible survivor beneficiaries would receive higher benefits under this new calculation than they do under the current law. Now, most of these beneficiaries would be those with low lifetime earnings. Now, for those who would receive higher benefits under this calculation, the average increase would be about 20%. So to be very clear, this is not an across-the-board increase to survivor benefits. This is only an increase to individuals with lower earnings. So I hope now that when you see there's going to be a 20% increase to survivor benefits mentioned in the media, it may not be an across-the-board increase. It's only going to impact about 40% of survivor benefit beneficiaries. Hey, before you leave, be sure to get a copy of my cheat sheet. This has all the most important stuff you need to know about Social Security, and it's condensed down to just one page. Within a few weeks, I'm going to have the brand new version of this out, and if you got this one, I'll automatically send you the newest version as soon as it's available. Well, as always, thank you for watching and taking the time to get informed for your retirement. Take care.